Good morning, Melee, and good morning to me as well. I'm exhausted from this week, one too many late night Slippy sessions, and stayed up late watching grand finals through time last night. I'm Kevin Dhir, your host for the Good Morning Melee show, and welcome to the fifth and the final day of the 5 days of Melee. Don't be too sad though, there's even more Melee content scheduled for this weekend with the Ludwig Agren Championship Series 3. If you didn't already see the trailer, go check out Ludwig's Twitter to see it. Seriously, it's insane what this guy can do. He's amazing. And on top of all that, he can fucking sing? Life's just unfair. Now let's just jump into what we've got planned for the final day of the week. On this special edition of the morning show, I'll be bringing you an interview with a donor, another interview with a special guest, and I'll be revealing the winners of the 10 entries we're raffling off to the Gallant Melee Open. If you haven't already done so, head over to Tiltify and you can donate for a chance to win an entry to the Gallant Melee Open. Type !donate for more info on how to do that. Following this segment, we'll be jumping over to some Rishi's Jungle Jam. Afterwards, we'll be joined by one of the flashiest Ultimate and Smash floor players to ever pick up the sticks, CLG's Void. He'll be presenting an Ultimate Player's Guide to Melee. As someone who plays both games myself, I think this is a fantastic segment, and I highly recommend anyone who's interested in picking up Melee to join us for it. Today's panel will be about commentary and feature some of Melee's most recognizable voices. The game show for today will feature a Melee-themed edition of Family Feud with some of your favorite personalities. Following Family Feud, I'm excited to watch the Smash Sisters crew battle. That will lead into our last edition of Melee show matches for the week, and we've got some big ticket matches on the bill, including a finale between Mango and Zane. We'll have another episode of Jeopardy and wrap up with a Melee It On Me podcast before we roll today's credits. Please join us for the credits this evening at 10:15 p.m. Pacific Time. Let's give a huge round of applause and shout out to the folks who made this event happen. I'd like to go ahead and shout out Kump and Zrango for making Good Morning Melee possible, as well as my girlfriend, Sui. By now, I hope you're familiar with Direct Relief. We were getting closer and closer to our goal of $50,000, and I hope we can break it today. Direct Relief is a humanitarian aid organization that's been doing incredible work to battle against COVID-19. Remember, !donate will give you more information about how you can support our causes, and we've got some pretty cool incentives and rewards as well. For today, we've got 2 open incentives. As I mentioned earlier, you can donate to enter for a chance to win one of 10 Gallant Melee Open entries. This event is only open to Canadian and Americans. You can also donate towards asking questions to the Melee It On Me podcast crew. Once again, that's all I've got for today. Let's jump over to our live segment, where I'll be joined by some special guests and then announce the winners for the Gallant Melee Open entries. You have until 10:45 a.m. to enter. Anyways, to the live segment, and thanks for joining me on the Good Morning Melee show. Good morning, everyone. Hi, welcome to the final edition of the Good Morning Melee segment, and I'm really excited to be here. It's kind of been a crazy week, and I honestly didn't expect any of this going into this week, but here we are. And today I'm joined by 2 fine fellows. I've got Rishi on my... Oh gosh, it's a little bit narrower than I expected. I've got Rishi and I've got Zane. Zane, aka Epengu, not the Marth player, but wait, do you play Marth or?
I'm Zane.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
this
is
you
Zane.
did actually mix us up. He plays Mart, so it's easy to confuse it.
Yeah, of course. Rishi, formerly known as Smash God, is a top 40 player known for his Marth. He's the brother of Laud. He's a fellow Brown man, and he's the co-host of the Analog podcast. And he's joined by Zane. Zane is a longtime member of our community as a journalist and writer and a content creator. He's had amazing articles posted as far as ESPN and the Washington Post. So I'm really glad you could both be here today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Rishi, who's your co-host on Analog?
Zane.
Oh, right, of course. That makes sense.
Yeah, right. It makes sense that the 2 MDVA Marth players would be hosting a podcast together.
2 Brown.
I should have called it the Tipper or something like that instead. Why Analog when you could have just gone for something so low hanging there?
You're right. We should have done that.
Yeah, I have a feeling Rishi came up with the name.
Yeah.
Before I go forward in interviewing you guys and talking to you more, I just wanted to call out that we still are accepting donations and raffle entries towards 10 entries to the Gallant Melee Open. The Gallant Melee Open is the first major of 2021 happening on Slippy, January 9th and 10th. And if you donate on Tiltify, !donate, you can enter for a chance to win one of 10 entries to that. I'll be announcing the winners in just a few minutes, actually. So please go do that right now if you can. But now back to the questions. So I actually wanted to talk to both of you because about a topic that might surprise some people, because Zane, actually, we talked about this and I learned this right before this. Zane is also a fellow of Indian descent, right?
Yeah.
So growing up and looking at pro sports and esports, when I was like 14, 15, it was hard to see faces I could relate to. And, I was like, wow, they probably come from a similar family background or have similar problems to me at home and just the cultural stuff that comes with it. But in Smash, it was actually surprisingly easy to find people to relate to. I remember when I first met Vish, when I learned that Chillin's name is Kashan Khan, and then I discovered Rishi and his brother. I've also got an older brother who is also coincidentally a doctor now, and we played Melee together our whole lives. I just wanted to ask you guys what your takes are on the representation of different groups in the Melee community, and how representation of people who are similar to yourselves may have helped you guys progress into the community.
Sure. You want to start, Zane, or me?
You go first.
Okay. Actually, representation is not something I really understood until the first time it kind of like happened to me. And specifically, I mean in terms of like mainstream media, like TV and film. Because kind of growing up, like you're just accustomed to seeing a certain type of person, and you're kind of conditioned to relate to that type of person. But actually, I remember distinctly the first time I kind of felt represented on like a piece of media that actually captured my personal life experience was one was The Big Sick with Kumail Nanjiani, and two was Master of None with Aziz Ansari. And I was like, these are two like brown guys in the US, whereas before the only exposure I had to brown people in like mainstream media was basically Bollywood, which is like people in India. And I've not been to India since I was an infant, so I have no idea what that's like, So it's really cool. I have over the years had people reach out saying like, oh, they're teenagers with brown parents, and they think it's cool to see Indian smashers like kind of be prominent figures in the community. So it's definitely not something I appreciated for a long time, and that was really in the last few years.
Yeah, it's interesting for me because there's no denying that, especially now having been bleached by the New York lack of sun for 7 years, I look so white. I'm like extremely white passing. And so growing up, it was an interesting thing navigating that, being able to like, there's no denying that I was able to find solidarity within, the mostly white Smash communities that I was in at the beginning too. But I can't deny that like when I first saw Zane, the other Zane, like that was one of the moments for me when I was like, oh my God, there's this brown kid who has the same name as me. And mine's not even like Indian in origin or Pakistani. It's not, it's not a South Asian name. It's spelled like the Celtic, like Zane Grey. But I was like, holy, this is so, so cool. And I also want to double down on what Rishi is saying, where like, it's different navigating it for me too, and it's something I think about a lot. I'm in film school right now, and I'm like, this is like what I write scripts about a lot of the time. But Big Sick was a big one, and then that Master of None episode, where it's the third episode in season 1, where they're doing the flashbacks to what their fathers went through to come to America. I like teared up and called my dad after that, and I was like, thank you so much. I could not. You don't fathom it fully sometimes when you come from a place of privilege. I think Rishi and I both are very lucky, obviously, to come from the places we have, obviously still talking about all this. And then when it hits you, it really hits you.
Yeah, definitely.
I can totally relate to that. How has so Rishi, you are now, I don't know if you're full time on Smash. I think you also have a job, but Smash is obviously a really big part of both your guys' lives. How have your parents and your family and your extended family received it, and have they supported you through it? And what were those conversations like when you're first having to tell your parents you're making these decisions, potentially where you're having to, choose Smash over something else at times, if those have come up?
Totally. I mean, growing up, it was definitely like a different story, especially because Lod and I both started entering tournaments really, really young. So for a long time, my first tournament, I was 11 and Lod was 10. So we were really only going to like one tournament a year, and that was us begging our parents to let us go. But now we're several years into the future, things kind of change. And I mean, my story is definitely like I have like a really good excuse now for like why I continue in Smash, because like my current job, I met my coworkers through Smash, and like that's how I initially got my connection into my current job. So I do work full time, but my full time job is in the gaming industry.
Mm.
So I'm not doing Smash full time, but whenever my family asks now, I'm like, well, I do have my job thanks to Smash in a way. So it kind of worked out.
Same, yeah.
That's huge. Cool. All right, I'm gonna jump away from the topic for our backgrounds and start talking to you a little bit more about your experiences as a top player and somebody who interacts a ton with top players. What are some of the resources that a top player might have access to or use or take advantage of towards growing that maybe somebody who's on a lower level who's new to the game might not even recognize are an option or have explored before?
Oh, it's got to be the VIP rooms, right? That's
Mhm.
the main thing.
I was just gonna say along those lines, just access to other top players.
Mm.
Like the better you get, the more people want to play with you, and the more people want to play with you, the more likely you are to be fighting other really really good players. That's definitely like it's just kind of like access. But to get to that point, you have to be making some breakthroughs on your own. So at least from my experience, there's definitely been times in the past couple years where it's like I've been pretty lazy. But if I look back to myself maybe 4 years ago, I was grinding so hard. I was going to like every tournament I could go to, like trying to get these wins. I wanted to get top 32 at every major. Um, but it's not easy for sure.
Mm. Do you think that your goals have shifted in this past year as a result of COVID and this new era of Slippy? I'm sure that, last year, this time, both of you might have had some goals around Melee and your career in esports. How has COVID and all the stuff that's come out in the Melee community, the advancements, how's that shifted your trajectory at all or shifted what you have in mind?
I think for me personally, my goals were shifting already a little bit, but COVID has definitely upset what my expectations were going to be. I got accepted to my graduate program a little less than a year ago, and I started applying a year ago. I had quit my job before that, partially to apply for graduate program, but also partially to focus on content and stuff. And then I spent a lot of the year doing content in other areas and working, making those Washington Post connections and that sort of stuff. And so then the idea was, okay, once I get to grad school, if I have any free time, I can use the energy I'm getting from talking about movies all day and talking about films all day to make more content. And since so much of my content is on the ground interviews, I have really felt sort of adrift without that. I could definitely do more stuff. And to be honest, it was sort of naive of me to think I would have the energy to do stuff in grad school, anyways. But the benefit of the interviews that I do is that, I don't know, I do feel pretty practiced at it now. And I love going to tournaments. Like, it's not like I go for the interviews. I go to tournaments and experience them and play and stuff. And as long as I have my camera and a mic, I mean, getting an interview is I have it down to a pretty exact science now of what I need to do and like the expectations of wrangling top players. And so to make some of the longer form videos that I have done, like for Cheddar and stuff, and the edited stuff. I could do that, and I enjoy doing that, but it's definitely would require a lot more resources and a lot more time management that I just don't have as a grad student right now. So I'm sad. It's been almost a year since I put out a Melee related video at all. And like Rishi and I, it's hard for us to do the podcast. We could do it over the Discord too, but like, it's just there's life stuff that always keeps us from doing it anyways. And then doing it over Discord in the middle of the pandemic. A lot of the time too, the stuff that we would talk about with the pandemic feels so mercurial that we have interest, and then by 3 days later, we don't have interest in talking about it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. When events inevitably return, whenever that may be, late 2021 is what I have in mind. What is something that you two might want to see done differently than we've done in the past, towards either making a higher value for attendees or just changing the community a little bit? But yeah, what is something that we might have been doing already, just not as much as you two would like?
Yeah, I definitely have an idea on this. It's playing IRL tournaments on monitors. I've been converted now thanks to Hax's Nightclub, because we basically ran an entire season of locals every single week on monitors, and it was totally fine. Now, the one caveat to that is you can't just use a console, plug on an HDMI like low lag adapter, and then put it into a console. What we actually used was a lag fix, which reduced the input lag to compensate for the increased input lag of the adapter to basically emulate CRT. In addition to that, we also had quality of life codes like Frozen Stadium, Frozen Wispy, Frozen like No Shy Guys. I don't think we need all of that. I think we do need Frozen Stadium. We also had widescreen, which is like a pretty nice quality of life change, though that depends on who you ask. I don't care that much either way. But changing to monitors, I think, is huge. Just for like hardware accessibility and pitching Melee at bigger tournaments and conventions, I think it would make a big difference.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely still going to always be some differences. The way that the image is scanned and projected is different. And Jesse Hertz has a great write-up on that as to why you might still feel different playing on a monitor, even if there's actually functionally the same lag. But I totally agree with Rishi. HNC is one of the best locals that I think has ever existed, just bar none.
Agreed.
It was so well run. It was like the most stacked local in the world, other than maybe like Versus series in Florida, you could argue sometimes, but or CFL SmackDown or whatever. But yeah, that monitor, that local was so good, and every time that there was an issue, it was so easily resolved. Like we had audio issues, etc. I got a fraudulent almost set win. I got some fraudulent wins with Falco side B because of audio issues, but it was so easy to fix. You just walk over, and because our community is so resourceful around all of the tech issues in this community already, like as soon as an issue comes up, it was so easy to just handle it every single time.
Yeah. Plus all of that combined with what we've done with Slippy. I mean, don't forget, Slippy right now is well known for rollback online play, but Slippy before that was turning every stream into HD custom, HUDs and everything. Like whatever you want the game to look like for your broadcast playback, you can do whatever you want. And I think we've seen that this week with 5 days of Melee with like the sick custom stock overlay and everything.
Shout outs to Leva. But other than that too, the other amazing thing about HNC, I don't know how many people knew this. When you went to HNC, because every single setup was Slippy broadcasting, if you noted down when you hit a combo, you could go back and just have that combo on because Hacks would upload all of the files
from the entire
tournament, every friendly. And so you could do match analysis if you wanted to. You could more frequently like find some silly combo that you did.
I think we did that. I think we did go back and hunt down one of our friendlies.
Yeah, we did. It was when you played Fox against me, and I just up tilted in place and killed you.
Oh yeah.
it was DK into Fox. You beat me really hard with DK, and then I murdered your Fox.
Okay, yeah. That
Two
tracks.
days stretch. But yeah.
It's so cool to see the technology around the game advance and that we have an actual API into the game, and things like that are huge. In combination with something like Project Clippy, we could just run an entire tournament through Project Clippy and suddenly have a highlight reel for the tournament. I think
Yeah.
that kind of stuff is insane. I wanted to jump over to what you guys are going to be doing right after this segment, which is Rishi's Jungle Jam, and talk to you a bit about Rishi's Jungle Jam, which is named after you. So, Rishi, Rishi, I had the chance to talk to Jake Zilla, I believe, on Monday about what Rishi's Jungle Jam all is about. But I'd love to ask you, the founder of Rishi's Jungle Jam, what was your idea behind Rishi's Jungle Jam, and could you just explain it a little bit to the audience?
Sure. Rishi's Jungle Jam just kind of like. I'm just looking at Zane's face.
I'm sure you might have had something prepared for next block, so feel free to hold it if you want to.
We'll talk a little bit more about it in the next
Yeah.
block. But the essence of Rishi's Jungle Jam is really the jungle. Where Zane, what is wrong?
Oh man, it's the morning show. It's still so early. That's all.
Okay, yeah, it was
Tired.
It's not like it's 1 p.m. for you, right?
Ignore that.
But like I said, it's really just the jungle, where we just kind of jam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I really relate to it when I watch it being played. It just really captures the essence of the jungle. So honestly, props to you for creating that game mode and finding a place in somewhere people never expected to go. The jungle.
Yeah.
Finding a home for characters like Fox, they just fit right in there. So
Definitely.
I'm really excited to watch that segment. And if you're watching this Good Morning show, I highly encourage you to stick around and watch Rishi and Zane host Rishi's Jungle Jam. Who's gonna be playing today?
Ooh.
It's actually a sick lineup. It's
an
actually
insane
a super sick
roster.
lineup.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got Moki, Magi, Nun, Forest, Laud, Axe, Don't Test Me, and probably Mango.
Mango, yeah.
It's really cool how you managed to fit a forest in a jungle, but wow, that's an insane lineup.
That was planned from the beginning.
Of course. Well, my dudes, I'm going to do a quick shout out to the winners of the GMO entries before I head back to you for one last question. But I'd like to congratulate, we just did the drawing. Shout out to Paper Fairy for doing it. For the 10 entries to the Gallant Melee Open, we have Mr. Twig, Ninjoma, Mixinok, Lambden, Spy, Timeline, Yosh Q, Usman, Jay Dunny, and Neo. So congrats to them for winning their entries to the Gallant Melee Open. They'll be added to the event directly. And if you're interested in participating in that event, smash.gg/GMO to check out more of that. All right, back to you guys for the last question before I just wrap this up. Describe Melee to you in 3 words, please. Or 3 words that come to mind when you think Melee.
Go ahead, Zane.
Zane's like, go ahead, Rishi.
Stupid fucking bird.
Okay. I'd say Rishi's Jungle Family.
I think that last one's a really important one.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have had you both on here. It does feel like family talking to homies from around the world. I think that's one thing Melee players are really appreciating now is that we're so connected around the world with homies everywhere, and because of Slippy, we're able to play video games with them as well. So, yeah, what a time we live in. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up with that. Thank you all for joining me this week on the Good Morning Melee show. It was kind of an impromptu segment. I didn't expect it to be what it was, but it's been amazing, I think. I've been really happy with it, and I've had the chance to talk to so many cool people like yourselves. So thank you